I just wanted to be left alone. It's not opinion, it's not sexism, it's fact. If we can't feel safe walking home from a friend's house, where can we feel safe? Hello everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Stacey. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you never miss a video. Today's video is going to be a little bit more serious, but something that I feel incredibly strongly about. Let's get into it. As you can see in the title, this video is covering what it's like to be a woman in 2021. But not just 2021, what it's been like for a very, very long time. I'd like to dedicate this video to Sarah, Everard and Sabina, Nessa, and every other woman that has been harassed, abused, discriminated against, intimidated, or made to feel uncomfortable. Usually with topics that I feel strongly about, I find it very easy to sit and talk about it. However, this time I feel I really need to take my time because I want to get my point across correctly and I want to articulate exactly what it is that I'm feeling. I think a good place to start is having a look at the problem. Now there's more than one problem, so we need to try and break this down into different sections. The first problem is victim blaming. For some reason, whenever there's a horrific attack against a woman or a girl, it's always brought into question what she was wearing, where she was going, what time of day it was. They always seem to find a way to justify the actions of the criminal. Now, we know full well that it does not matter what you're wearing, how much makeup you've got on, whether your hair is up, down, whether you have been to the gym, to the club, to the shops. If someone has that intention, they are going to follow through with it. We really need to step out of this mentality of blaming the people that are being attacked. As girls, we grow up being taught your outfit's too revealing. Don't go out at night by yourself. Make sure you always tell someone where you are. Learn self-defense. And what's worse is from a young age, we're also taught if somebody catcalls you, we should take it as a compliment. I don't know when we got this mentality of it being the victim's fault. I don't know why there's this need to justify certain behaviours based on a completely innocent, unrelated decision that the victim decided to make that day. As women, we are constantly taught to always be thinking ahead. We'll put an outfit on, and I guarantee the majority, if not all of us, have had the moment where you think about how people are going to react to that when you leave the house. Is my skirt too short? Is my midriff showing? Is my cleavage showing? Are my heels too high? Have I not got enough layers on? Have I got too much makeup on? Should I change my hair? I don't think I've ever met a man that has had to think about those kind of things before leaving the house. And that's why I've decided to call this video exactly what it is. It's the war against women. Women do not feel safe. We are tired. We are tired of being told to look after ourselves and to cover up, to cross the road when you see someone, to share your location with everyone anytime you go somewhere. We're tired because attacks keep happening. I know what a lot of people are going to say, and I am factoring it into this video because I know I'm going to get a lot of comments saying that it's not all men. And I want to talk about that. If you're presented with a scenario where something horrific has happened to someone, something distressing, something traumatizing, and your first reaction is to say that it's not all men, what you're doing, in fact, is you're derailing the conversation. You're shifting the focus from a victim's story to a defensive mechanism. No, it's not all men. But is this happening to all women? Yes. If you're not guilty of doing these things, what are you doing to stop it? Are you intervening if you see it happen? Are you sharing things on social media to support people and help people? Are you staying silent if your mate makes a snidey comment to someone that he doesn't know? Have you catcalled, whistled at someone across the road, put your arm around their waist when you're trying to walk past them? If you're not part of the change and the solution, you're part of the problem. Oh, but men go through this too. Absolutely. Of course men go through this. But who do you think it is doing it to them? There's a pattern. It's repetitive. It's not opinion. It's not sexism. It's fact. There is a problem with male violence, and it's being ignored because we're protecting the egos of men that are saying it's not all men. I don't know a single woman that hasn't at some point in her life been harassed. Not one. I can think of several men in my life that have never had to go through it. So what we're looking at here is the patterns of who it is happening to, but also who the perpetrators are. The sad reality is that when we learn about what happened to Sarah Everard, every single one of us thought, Sarah could have been me. She was walking home. She had been to a friend's house and was walking home. If we can't feel safe walking home from a friend's house, where can we feel safe? What makes this worse is that the person who brutally kidnapped was using his police identity to lure her in. These are people that we're supposed to feel safe around. People that are supposed to protect us. And if we're seeing stories that even they are committing these crimes, well, who can we trust? What are we supposed to do? Because we're done living our lives in fear. We are done. We are sick of being told to be careful. Because you don't have to say this to boys. Instead of telling the victims what not to do, let's start educating boys about what is acceptable. Heckling, catcalling, groping. These are all crimes that will happen against an individual against their will. And the reason we're tired is because it keeps happening. I want to draw on some of my own personal experiences just to illustrate my point. When I was a teenager, I used to walk from my dad's house to my mum's. So I would usually leave the house at around 6:30 in the morning. And I distinctly remember, bearing in mind I was 13, 14 years old max, when I had vans beeping at me and shouting things out the window to a teenage girl at 6:30 in the morning who's on her way to get ready for school. It's so cowardly as well. Any time that someone beeps at you or shouts something at you or heckles you from across the street, they are always in a position where they can get away and move. They'll say what they want to say and then they'll laugh, nudge their mate and continue. Meanwhile, you're left with young women that feel vulnerable. At 6:30 in the morning, I haven't even started my school day yet. I haven't even had breakfast yet. If people are willing to do it in broad daylight, they'll be willing to do it whenever they can. A few years ago, I was on a night out in Coventry and I had to report a man for groping me, squeezing my bum and trying to put his hand up my skirt. I went to the bouncer and at first he did nothing. Then when the man continued to be inappropriate, I went back and I said, I need you to do something about this. He is going around and touching women in a public place. That's sexual harassment. Eventually they chucked the guy out, but there was no big repercussions. I was asked if I wanted to report it to the police, and I did. I was with friends and we all sat waiting around and I had to go to a police station. Now, as we were walking to the car to go to the police station, I saw the man and I said, that's him. There he is with his friends. He was just walking past the club. I pointed him out. He was there. He wasn't running. He was walking past, smirking, if anything. And they didn't do anything. They didn't take pictures. They didn't go after him. They didn't do a thing. Instead, they took me to the police station and I made a statement. The next morning, an officer came round to take a DNA swab on my skin to see if they could trace it back. And I was told a few days later that there was nothing that they could do because they didn't know the guy. Now, I pointed him out there and then. There was CCTV footage in the club and he still got away. Now, it sounds like a small thing, but if he knows he can get away with that, he's going to keep pushing his boundaries. He's going to keep seeing what he can get away with. And you know, it doesn't always have to be sexual. You can still feel intimidated in non-sexual situations purely out of fear. I was recently sitting in a public park reading my book. I'd had a lot of things that I needed to do that morning, so before I went home, I went to the park, sat down, opened my book, had my glasses on, and was quite clearly engaged in what I was reading. This guy comes up to me and says hello and proceeds to ask me where I'm from, what job I do, why I'm in Australia. He's sitting on the bench next to me and I'm not looking at him. I'm not giving him eye contact. I'm not really answering his questions. I answered maybe the first 2 because I felt awkward, and then I decided to just point blank ignore him. But he kept persisting. He kept talking. He was sitting next to me telling me that his brother was crazy and he's looking to get a new house and this, that and the other. And I'm really not listening. I want this guy to go and leave me alone. If someone is sitting like this, reading a book, not giving you eye contact and not answering your questions, take the hint and leave them alone. He also kept trying to get me to validate him and feed his ego by saying things like, oh, I'm a good guesser, aren't I? And really making me feel uncomfortable. Then he asked me what my name was, and I shut my book, I looked at him and I said, why do you need to know my name? And he said, oh, come on, like just say something. I said, you don't need to know my name. I'm sitting here and I'm reading my book. Opened my book, carried on. Now, I didn't know whether this man was violent, aggressive, had anger problems, didn't take rejection very well. I was lucky because it was then that he decided to take the hint and get his stuff and leave. A few minutes later, I also picked up my things and left and went elsewhere. And I don't think I'll be returning there anytime soon, especially not alone. And it really angered me. It made me feel so angry that I just wanted to be left alone. I don't need to answer your questions. I don't need to tell you who I am. I don't need to validate you. I don't want to be in this situation. Those are 3 very different examples that have happened across very different stages of my life. From being an early teenager to being my early 20s to now in my mid-20s. And that is a fraction, a tiny portion of the kind of things that women go through on a daily basis. Something is not right. These things are happening and they're going unreported because people are scared. People are deciding not to do certain things because they cannot be bothered with the so-called consequences of popping out to get some milk at 7 o'clock in the evening. I saw a comment on someone's Instagram that said, so can someone please explain to me why men are more likely to be victims of crime based on FBI statistics? The girl whose post it was, her name is M. Clarkson, she's a fantastic advocate for women's rights, replied, we aren't talking about the victims, we're talking about the perpetrators. You are also most likely to get attacked by men, so male violence is still a problem. To which he replied saying, okay, you want to get sexist about it. What I don't understand about this is why are men so desperate to be victims of something, to be hard done by? Why do they want to be victims of harassment, sexism, abuse, intimidation? It's like there's this mentality that women can't be scared or angry or upset about something happening to them without someone else invalidating it. And that is part of the problem. We're not saying that it's just women. We're saying it's mostly women. I don't know. It's just really disappointing that people choose to derail the conversation and shut down a story or invalidate an experience because they are more concerned with how their ego looks and how they are presenting themselves. If you're more concerned with how men are being portrayed as a result of these crimes that are being committed predominantly by men than you are about the issue itself, then we have a problem. And that's really, really scary. We should feel protected. We should feel safe. And the bottom line is we don't. Conversations are being shut down. People are not being punished for the crimes that they're getting away with. Women are scared to admit when something has happened to them because it's not being taken seriously enough. And it starts with us. As a society, we are the ones that are driving the responses to these actions, and we need to do better. The really frustrating thing is that whilst we do need to be educating people on how to act appropriately and safely, The reality is women are still going to be told to keep their keys between their hands, to cross the street, to watch what you're wearing, don't smile, don't laugh, don't put too much makeup on, keep your head down at all times. That is still going to happen. We are still going to have to protect ourselves and live on edge until this is taken seriously. And what's really frightening and really upsetting is that we know there's going to be more instances just like Sarah Everard and Sabina Nessa. They are happening right now. Change needs to happen. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. This is a really important topic and I felt I had a lot to say on it, so I appreciate you for listening. Thank you so much. Take care, look after yourselves and stay safe. See you later.